Donald Trump, Elon Musk, and Marco Rubio just dropped a bombshell about the Panama Canal, and it's worse than you think. How did this happen? Why now? And what could this mean for global trade and US power? Let's look into it. Trump's bold threat, Rubio's surprising move, and Musk's unexpected silence. This story isn't what it seems. But there's more: hidden deals, rising tensions, and a twist no one saw coming. You won't believe who's really involved. A shocking announcement that's shaking the globe. Donald Trump, Elon Musk, and Marco Rubio have just made a surprising announcement about the Panama Canal, and it's causing a big reaction around the world. This isn't just about politics. It could affect global trade, create conflict with China, and impact the world economy. The Panama Canal links the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans and is very important for global trade. The owner has a lot of control over shipping lines. Trump is saying that the US might try to take back control if China keeps getting stronger. Rubio, the Secretary of State, supports Panama's decision to stop working with China's Belt and Road Initiative. What about Musk? Although he hasn't said much, people are wondering if something is going on because they keep hearing his name. This isn't just a political problem, it's about who controls an important shipping path in the world. Things are unfolding in a way that is worse than expected. If you think this is just another story, think again. The situation at the Panama Canal is developing and could have significant effects. The Panama Canal story. The Panama Canal has been an important resource for over 100 years. The US directed it until 1999, which helped them control trade lines and keep military strength in the area. After Panama took control, the canal was still very important for foreign shipping, so it continued to matter a lot to the US. It's not just a shortcut for ships, it's a geopolitical prize that holds huge economic and security value. China's Belt and Road Initiative has helped it spend heavily in Panama, especially in ports and infrastructure, in recent years. This situation has raised worries in Washington because China's increasing power in the area could harm US interests, especially regarding a key trade route. The US government has been worried that China's growing influence in the region could help them control worldwide trade and, in turn, global power. Panama's choice to let its Belt and Road deal with China end has sparked new interest in the canal. This change made people wonder if Panama is ready to work more closely with the US, leading Washington to take notice. There are strong reports that the canal might be closed temporarily. This big decision could be seen as the US trying to take control of the canal again or to push Panama into making new deals. How Trump, Rubio, and Musk are involved. Trump's strong position on trade and national security shows that he is a key player, as he always aims to protect US interests. Rubio, the Secretary of State, wants to build better relations with Panama. Musk's name has been mentioned, even though he wasn't directly included in the announcement. His work in global infrastructure and transportation might connect him to future projects or choices. With reports of the canal closing, it's clear that this situation is more complicated and serious than it seems. What exactly was announced? Donald Trump's remark about the Panama Canal has made a big impact. He has confidently suggested that the US should consider taking back control of the Panama Canal if China continues to gain influence in the region. For Trump, it's not only about reclaiming what was lost but also about keeping the country safe and improving trade with other nations. The US has always seen the canal as very important to its interests. If China keeps increasing its power, it could harm the US and other countries, particularly related to trade and security. Trump's message isn't just meaningless talk for politics. His government had previously criticized China's Belt and Road Initiative, which increased China's power in countries such as Panama. With Panama reconsidering its relationship with China, Trump thinks the US can regain its influence in the country. His comments about regaining control of the canal likely aim to let Panama and China know that the US won't stand by as China gains more power in this important area. Trump has always focused on prioritizing America. His comments indicate that the US will move if it believes its interests are threatened. The Panama Canal is a key trade path, and whoever owns it holds significant power over global trade. Trump's idea that the US could regain control shows that this issue affects not just Panama but the entire world, and it can lead to serious effects. Trump's desire to take risks shows that the US is committed to maintaining its influence in the region. Marco Rubio, the US Secretary of State, has talked about what's happening in Panama. Rubio supported Panama's decision to end its Belt and Road Agreement with China, stating that it is a positive step for strengthening ties with the US. Rubio believes this decision will improve relations between the two countries. He views this as a chance to rebuild trust and boost US influence in the region, which has been weakening due to China's growing presence. Trump is being very confident and strong, while Rubio is being more respectful and cautious. He is dedicated to helping Panama and promoting teamwork. Rubio wants Panama to understand that the US supports it in its efforts to distance itself from China. He thinks this is not only about protecting US interests, but also about backing democratic values and keeping Panama as a key partner in the Americas. Rubio has frequently remarked that China's Belt and Road Initiative is a way for China to put countries in debt and increase its influence globally. Rubio is supporting Panama's decision to shift away from China to demonstrate that the US can be a reliable partner. He thinks the US values long-term ties and respect more than quick deals that might have hidden problems. Rubio's comments indicate that he is backing American values while also promoting teamwork and stability in the area. He is trying to persuade Panama that working with the US could be a better option than keeping close to China. Rubio wants to maintain US influence in the area without using extreme measures, even if taking control of the canal seems extreme. Let's discuss Elon Musk. He hasn't specifically commented on the Panama Canal situation, but many people keep bringing him up. Why is that? Musk's companies, such as Tesla, SpaceX, and the Boring Company, could be greatly impacted by any changes to the canal. He's known for changing transportation in big ways, and he might be considering how controlling trade routes could fit into his plans to change global shipping and infrastructure. The Panama Canal is a key part of the overall situation. Even though Musk hasn't commented on it openly, many believe he might be involved. Since Musk wants to improve global transportation, it's natural for people to mention him when talking about the canal. If the US regained control of the canal or made significant changes to its operations, it could affect global shipping paths and the movement of goods around the world. Musk often talks about the future of transportation and might be thinking about a big project in an area that could be impacted by changes to the canal. Musk hasn't commented on this, but since he has a lot of influence in technology and infrastructure, he might have an important impact on world shipping and trade in the future. He always thinks ahead, so if the US changes its position on the Panama Canal, Musk might take notice. He might be getting ready for a future job in global transportation involving the canal, perhaps by using new shipping technologies or constructing new buildings. Trump and Rubio's roles are clear, but there is much uncertainty about Musk's participation, highlighting the significance of this announcement. It's not just about politics, it's also about global trade, construction, and new technology for the future. As the US works to take better control of the Panama Canal, Elon Musk is often discussed because of his significant impact on global infrastructure. Can he help change how things are transported, especially on this key trade route? It's really interesting how everything is coming together. Trump wants to take action, Rubio is trying to keep the peace, and Musk, while not directly involved, may agree with the changes happening in the area. If the canal is stopped or controlled by the US, it could affect shipping from other countries. Musk would notice this, even if he doesn't say anything about it. Trump and Rubio are getting a lot of attention in the news, but it's also important that Musk isn't speaking out. This allows for guessing, making the Panama Canal more exciting and interesting. The issue goes beyond politics, it affects the future of global trade, technology, and power. Musk hasn't said anything directly, but he could be part of a larger plan. As pressures around the Panama Canal increase, it's not only Trump, Rubio, and Musk who are being noticed. There are other people working quietly in the background who could change who has the most power. Private businesses, especially in shipping and energy, have a lot to gain from the future of the canal. These companies stand to benefit from controlling global trade routes, so they have quietly backed different leaders and efforts that could affect the canal's future. Some big shipping companies are trying to get a role in managing the canal because it's really important for moving goods around the world. Besides private companies, other countries in the area are also becoming active. Countries such as Costa Rica, Colombia, and Venezuela are creating their own partnerships to take advantage of the rivalry between the US and China. These countries might not have a direct influence over who manages the canal, but they are preparing to benefit from any economic chances that come from changes in the situation. Smaller countries can improve their economies by choosing to support either the US or China, which may lead to new trade routes or investments. People are talking a lot about national security and trade, but there's more happening that isn't obvious. The US has wanted to rule the Panama Canal for a long time, and there is a strong economic reason for this interest. The canal not only provides a shortcut for military ships but is also important for world trade. Whoever is in charge of this has power over the trade between the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans, giving them control over a large part of the world's economy. If the US regains control of the canal, it could strengthen its status as the leading global economic power. It's not only about trade. There are rumors that the US is looking at the canal to help protect important resources in the future. As the world moves towards green energy, the US may view the canal as an important location for transporting not only regular goods but also the new energy resources that are becoming more valuable in global markets. Finding a reliable way to access those resources is just as important as having military or economic control of the canal. As expected, China is not just sitting around while the US takes action. China is trying to increase its power in Latin America, including Panama, through its Belt and Road Initiative, BRI. The canal is very important for China's international trade, and they will defend their interests in the area strongly. In reaction to the US trying to regain influence, China will probably work harder to gain support from smaller Latin American countries that rely on trade with China. China has already spent a lot on building projects in the area, and it will probably continue to make new deals or partnerships to boost its influence. It may also provide money or trade benefits to countries that oppose US participation in the canal, helping to keep its influence in the area strong. Besides making economic agreements, China might also use secret operations to keep its power. There is a belief that China may respond with hacking strategies or other subtle methods to stop the US from gaining more ground. The fight for the canal is not just about politics or money. It's turning into a big global contest to control one of the most important resources in the world. The Panama Canal has been very important for worldwide trade for more than 100 years. In the early 1900s, the US understood the value of having a quick route between the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. This resulted in the building of the canal, finished in 1914 with help from the US. Before the canal was built, ships had to travel a long and risky path around the southern tip of South America. The canal significantly reduced travel time, allowing goods and military supplies to move quickly, which helped the US become a world superpower. In the 20th century, the US controlled the canal, but this led to growing problems, particularly with Panama, the country next to the canal. Panama always believed it should have complete control over the canal, which resulted in years of talks and political disputes. Due to increasing anger, the US agreed to talks that would let Panama take control by the end of the century. A key moment in the history of the Panama Canal happened when the Torrijos-Carter treaties were signed in 1977. The US agreed to give control of the canal to Panama by 1999, but it had to stay neutral and open to all countries. This deal was important because it ended US control of the canal, but the US could still step in if the canal's neutrality was at risk. This deal was meant to ease tensions with Panama and build better ties between the two countries. However, the rules about neutrality have been a topic of disagreement, especially as global trade has gotten more complicated. The US and Panama have had issues about the canal's place in global politics. Now, with rising geopolitical tensions, old agreements are being re-examined. Today, the Panama Canal is still very important. The canal is responsible for about 5% of global trade, which makes it one of the key trade lines worldwide. It helps ships skip the long and dangerous trip around South America, saving time and fuel. The canal is very important for trade between the US and Asia, and it also helps with the worldwide transportation of items like oil, grain, and manufactured goods. The canal is important not just for money reasons, but also for security reasons. The U.S. Navy still uses the canal to quickly move ships between the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. That's why it's important not only for Panama but for the world's power dynamics. Given this, it's not surprising that people are arguing a lot about the future of the canal. The Panama Canal is back in the spotlight as both the US and China want to control it, highlighting a global power battle. There's a lot going on behind the scenes at the Panama Canal that the public often doesn't know about. There are rumors about hidden agreements between the US and Panama, especially now that people are paying more attention to the canal again. Both countries may have made agreements that aren't completely clear, especially regarding who controls the canal and what will happen to it in the future. These secret talks could cover topics like military access and financial deals that help both sides while keeping the facts private. Elon Musk's companies, like Tesla and SpaceX, might also play a secret part in these talks. Musk hasn't talked about his role in the Panama Canal, but he is interested in big infrastructure projects and wants to grow his companies around the world. It's not very surprising to think that Musk could be having secret discussions about important infrastructure related to world trade. If the US or Panama wants to create new technology or energy projects around the canal, Musk's companies could take the lead. Tesla is working on more renewable energy projects, and SpaceX could help with satellite technology for world delivery. China's impact in Panama goes beyond just the canal. China has invested a lot in different parts of Panama's economy over the years. They have invested in port facilities, logistics centers, and technology projects to improve trade and increase their power in the area. These projects are part of China's Belt and Road Initiative, which seeks to increase their global influence by building infrastructure in important areas. While the US is focused on the canal, China has quietly developed a series of projects that strengthen its influence in the area. China has put money into several ports along Panama's coast and has built new ports that manage a lot of trade. These investments make Panama an important part of China's worldwide supply line. Even beyond that, China has also put money into tech and logistics, with the goal of making Panama an important player in global trade and innovation. This puts the US in a tough spot. As they work to regain control of the canal, they are also facing China's growing presence in Panama's economy. When considering the companies interested in the Panama Canal discussion, you can't overlook Tesla and SpaceX. They may not be usual players in global trade, but consider this: if the US or Panama begins new infrastructure projects near the canal, it could create opportunities for Musk's companies to grow in that area. Tesla's renewable energy products could energize new building projects, and SpaceX's satellite technology could improve communication and logistics in the area. Picture a situation where SpaceX's Starlink offers dependable internet for ships moving through the canal, or where Tesla builds solar-powered stations along shipping routes. These companies have great opportunities because the Panama Canal is very important. Even if it's not clear at first how they are involved, they can still gain a lot. In the US, the news about renewed interest in the Panama Canal has received mixed responses from politicians and the media. Some people fully back a stronger US approach in the area. These lawmakers believe that gaining control over the canal is important for US national security and economic strength. They say that China's power is increasing and that the US needs to take action to protect its interests. Some say that the US could improve its influence in Latin America by resisting China's Belt and Road Initiative. On the other hand, some leaders and commentators are cautioning that the US may be going too far. These critics say that this action could hurt ties with Panama and other nearby countries, causing more feelings of anger and distrust. People are worried about what this might mean for other countries, especially those that depend on the canal for trading. These critics believe that taking control of the canal could harm both diplomatic relations and the safety of global trade. Managing their response, since the US has shown increased interest in the canal. On one hand, people feel proud to have control of something so important for the country. Panama values its independence, and many Panamanians are not happy about strangers trying to take back control of important buildings and services. People worry that this action could weaken Panama's independence and create a negative impression of their role in world affairs. There are also worries about the economy. Panama's economy relies heavily on the canal, so any interruption to trade could seriously impact the country. Panamanians value their independence, but they also recognized that the canal is very important for the economy. If the US intervenes and starts making demands, Panama might face a difficult situation. Some Panamanian leaders may secretly support stronger connections with the US if it secures their financial stability. Countries around the world have reacted with both worry and interest to the US paying more attention to the Panama Canal. Countries that rely on the canal for trade, like Colombia, Japan, and those in Europe, are very concerned. If the canal stops working, it could greatly affect world supply chains for these countries. Even a small change in control of the canal could impact their economies, particularly for those that depend on fast shipping. Countries that have usually backed Panama's control of the canal are paying close attention, unsure of how the US moves will affect their own interests. At the same time, China has quickly expressed its worries. The Chinese government often uses diplomatic pressure if it thinks its investments are at risk, and it will probably keep opposing any efforts to weaken its power in Panama. This will definitely increase conflicts between the US and China, especially as both countries compete for control of this important infrastructure. What the media isn't telling you, let's be real, any attempt by the US to reclaim control of the Panama Canal wouldn't just be an uphill fight. It would create significant law and ownership problems. Panama took complete control of the canal in 1999 due to the Torrijos-Carter treaties, which aimed to keep the canal neutral. The goal was to prevent any one country from controlling this important route. If the US tries to take back its leading role, it would be breaking its promise and going against international agreements. It's not just a political issue, it's a complicated law situation that could create problems for Panama. There are many foreign laws involved, and if the US intervenes, it could be viewed as a violation of Panama's independence. The effects could spread widely, too. Panama's independence is an important part of who it is and how it is viewed by other countries. If the US tries to take more control, it could cause a lot of legal issues and involve foreign organizations like the United Nations. Other countries, especially in Latin America, might view this as a type of imperialism, which could hurt the US's ties with them. Besides all the political and legal problems, there's another important issue that is often ignored: the environment. The Panama Canal has been an important trade route for more than 100 years, but its growth and higher usage pose significant environmental dangers. The canal itself already faces challenges linked to water levels, invasive species, and pollution. In the last few years, climate change has made these issues worse. As more ships go through the canal and plans to make it bigger continue, the damage to the environment could increase a lot. It's not just the canal that is impacted, the nearby species may also be harmed. People are worried that more trade could result in increased pollution in the water and nearby places. However, these environmental issues are not commonly discussed in the discussion. Politicians and the media usually talk about the economic and political aspects of the problem. However, the environmental impact could also be very important, especially if the canal is expanded to allow more ships. This is often ignored when people focus on control and influence, but it's an important problem that needs to be talked about. What if things go wrong for the US? Rising conflicts about the Panama Canal could harm the US economy. China is a key country in world trade, and its importance goes beyond just the canal. If the US tries too hard to reduce China's power in Panama, China might respond by targeting other markets where the US is weak. The future of the Panama Canal: there are different possible results, and each one could lead to big changes. In a good situation for the US, they successfully reduced China's power in Panama by using diplomatic negotiations. This would require good negotiating skills, giving trade benefits, and maybe putting some pressure on Panama. If successful, the US could improve its relationship with Panama and strengthen its position as an important trade partner in the area. Panama would need to be tougher on China's Belt and Road Initiative. This could lead to better business cooperation between the US and Panama over time. In this situation, the canal stays open and neutral, but the US has taken back some power and influence in the area. If China manages to gain more control in Panama, it could lead to a bigger conflict between nations. China might spend more on infrastructure and ports, which could make it tougher for the US to compete. Panama may not want to risk upsetting its main trade partner, which could lead it to become more influenced by China. This could create tensions between the US and China, especially in Latin America, where the US has usually had a lot of power. This might create a new phase in the competition between the US and China, with Panama in the middle. A third option is that the situation could lead to a new international coalition stepping in to mediate the dispute. Panama and other countries that depend on the canal may ask for a fair answer with help from international groups like the United Nations or the World Trade Organization. With both superpowers vying for influence, smaller nations in the region might find themselves caught in the crossfire, struggling to protect their own interests. This could also spark a rethinking of how global trade routes are controlled, potentially leading to new agreements or even realignments. As tensions grow, the canal could become a focal point for broader geopolitical shifts, reshaping Latin America's role on the world stage. This group could help keep the canal available for everyone, instead of letting only the US or China run it. The goal is to keep the canal neutral and make sure it can still be used for foreign trade. Achieving this outcome will need a lot of cooperation from everyone involved, and it might be the hardest option to reach. The future of the Panama Canal will affect trade around the world, no matter what happens. If the US or China gets more control, it could greatly affect shipping costs, delivery times, and the prices of everyday items. Outro. Hope you enjoyed the video.